All right, so could you repeat the first question? Hey, repeat the first question.
Of course. The first question was about whether you think Jesus' reference to separating the wheat from the chaff is more about our outward acts of obedience or the inner reality of our faith, and how you see the balance between those two.
I don't know. I don't understand. Why you asked the question? What is that you are trying to know?
No worries. I'm just curious how you interpret that idea of the wheat and the chaff. Basically, do you think Jesus is focusing more on what we do outwardly, like our actions, or is it more about the sincerity of our faith inside?
Hey, this parable mainly talks about the theme of judgment. So the harvest represents the end of the age where Christ comes and brings judgment upon all the people, and he will also bring judgment on the world, and that's the main focus of the parable. I don't understand why you brought that up. Why you brought the outward action about this parable? Because that's not the main focus of this parable. The main theme of this parable is the judgment that Christ will bring when he returns.
That makes a lot of sense. I really appreciate that perspective. Focusing on the theme of judgment and Christ's return is definitely central to that parable. It's interesting to think about how that final judgment will really reveal the true nature of everyone's faith.
Right. Another question, please.
Absolutely. So, considering that theme of judgment, how do you think we can best prepare ourselves and help others to be ready for that day when it comes?
So, how do we get prepared? How do we prepare ourselves for the coming of Christ? That's a very simple answer. First, we must. What ultimately matters is to overcome the days of tribulation, because only those who overcome the tribulation will join Christ's glory when he returns. In other words, they are the ones who will be taken upon his at his return. And how do we overcome the days of tribulation? Even though we do not survive to see such days, we must live with a faith strong enough to overcome the tribulation. And this such faith is proven by remaining obedient even amidst God's testing and humbling circumstances. In other words, staying faithful in obedience even amidst trials and persecution.
I love that explanation. It really highlights the importance of having a faith that's resilient and steadfast no matter what challenges we face. It's definitely a inspiring reminder of how important obedience and faithfulness are in our spiritual journey.
Right. Okay, let's have one last question and we are good to go.
All right, for our last question, let's dive into something practical. How do you think we can encourage and support each other in staying faithful and obedient, especially during challenging times?
We must live a church-centered life. That's the best answer I can give. That's the best answer I can give you, because the church is the very place we gather to hear the word of God and engage in fellowship with faithful believers who can counsel us to align ourselves with the word of God.
That's a great point. Being part of a church community definitely helps us stay grounded and accountable, and it gives us that support system we need. Thanks for sharing that insight.